Okay guys, I am now going to be building the fender well that goes into this trailer, and I'm going to show you how I get that done. Alright, now what I've done is I have a large piece of flat metal, and that is 16 gauge, and I've cut it to shape to mimic this right here. Now we're going to be cutting these, but we have a large sheet of salvaged metal, pretty good thickness. It's 20 gauge, pretty stiff, kind of sounds flexible. It's pretty heavy stuff. So this is going to be our inner fender right here. This will be the framework, and the studs will be going across and have foam, and then of course there'll be some wood on top of that. That is going to be our fender well. So what I've done is I went ahead and had a piece of 1.5 inch angle, heavily caulked, using, of all things, because it's metal and wood, this power grab by Loctite. Now it's an adhesive, but what it does is it doesn't shrink, and that's a very important feature. Now we've screwed down into the wood and self-tapping screws into the actual frame, so it's real solid. Taking regular heavy gauge flashing, this right here is 24 gauge, so it's pretty heavy gauge flashing. I have made a rim so that the metal for the fender will go up inside of this, and it'll go over this piece here that is shaped like this. Let's get that started, and I'll show you how I'm going to build an inner frame and a fender to replace the plastic one that blew apart on this side over here, because this side is where the trailer was damaged when the authorities were chasing the previous owners who had the trailer full of things they shouldn't have had, apparently. All right guys, let's get this going. All right guys, now what we have here is we have the piece of thicker metal attached to the angle that I made. I've made it on my bender. And then up here we have the inside or the fender metal that we're using. And what I've done is I'm just taking a piece of 2x4 and just a piece of scrap, and I'll put it on the top here, and I'll just kind of push down a little bit and just back and forth, and it starts to make a line on the ridge of this metal here. Now over here on the edges, what I've done is starting in the beginning of where it has its radius, I went ahead and made cuts. Now we're going to be using the flashing style caulk up inside of here, and we'll put a heavy coating of it as we bend these down. Then each one of these will have a rivet or a screw on that. Here is the fender. Out here we have used screws to attach it up inside, and we epoxied the screws. So what that means is I shot the screw up about halfway, pulled it back out, put Gorilla glue epoxy, the acrylic epoxy, in the hole, and then shot the screw in. That way it swells around that screw and locks it in, and you reduce the chance of that screw ever falling out. Out here you can see we followed the radius. The old fender didn't make a bit of difference over here, as you see there. So by following this radius right here, we just allowed to go, and we'll put a filler in on both of those. This piece of metal back here was just for nothing but alignment. It actually wasn't intended to be attached. The metal is actually running way past, about 3 inches past up here, and sheeting the whole inside. So let's take a look on the outside, and I'll show you what I got done there. Okay, now over here, what we have is about the same thing. We've got the siding loose up in the top and down here on the sides, and we have cut it where it's going to go into its radius so that it'll go underneath the siding. So we're going to caulk seal that so that it comes in and squishes in between the cuts here as we fold them in and tap them in with a rubber mallet. Same thing with this piece here. You'll see that in there. And that gives us a total sealed fender well, so that when all these pieces up in here are bent down and sealed with a row of rivets or screws, it'll be a tight sealed fender well. You see how that works there? Now that is the method that we built with. Very structurally sound, and same thing over here. The metal will bend down and hit the wood, and the siding will go on the outside of that. And then our fender wells, we're going to make at a 2-inch angle. So they'll come up and then run across, kind of almost squared. There'll be a couple small cuts to give them a slight radius, but they'll be going plenty distance up here, and then we'll use a heavy sealant up inside there that will seal that off. Using some of this Dynaflex, I went in underneath here, and we put a good bit of it so that we can fold the metal down. And I'm going to fold this metal down and shoot the screws in so that we have a full contact seal on it. And the next one we'll just go down by gently taking the hammer and bending it down against the metal that's here. And then the one after that, same thing. And then the one after that, same thing. You see I'm working around a circle here, just filling the radius out. And then as you see now, I double layered that over. We're going to go ahead and put a screw in on that one. All right, so we pull that tight, and we'll shoot screws wherever it looks like it needs it. But generally, you don't have to use a lot of them. You just want this stuff here to really ooze out around all this area. Don't worry about it. Just smear it everywhere. It's not going to matter. All right, now we've put Dynaflex up underneath down here, and we've went ahead and put it out here just by shooting it in there like that and just wiping it into the joints, and it will dry, but it'll stay a soft seal at the same time. And yeah, this ain't intended to be pretty. This will be covered by wood, but we want to make sure no moisture can get in. So even like along here, we'll put this like that, and then come at an angle and wipe it down in the joint. As much waterproofing as you can do, you want to do it. So the idea of this stuff is this Dynaflex is extremely flexible and very, very tacky, so it'll grab. If you get it on your hands or your clothes, you'll notice it's real sticky. So it'll get on here, and when it seals and the screws are put in, all the voids will be filled with this, but it'll stay just flexible enough over a very long time. And if you'll notice, it's a window and door and siding, but it makes an extremely, extremely good flexible seal. It never will split. That's the best part about this stuff. It won't crack. Even that little spot right there will not crack and reopen. So now we do have Dynaflex in here behind where the two metals went together, and it came out, and we wiped some of it off there. So you can see some of it sticking up right over there. All right, so the next step is just taking this and right up here on top of the metal. All right, we're just going to kind of tap down, and you can see that the top of the ridge of that metal is making a nice seam. So we pre-bent it a little bit using the 2x4 like I showed you before, and then now we're just going to walk it down slowly all the way down to the end and shoot the screws in about every 4 inches, and this will be finished. The next step is going to be taking these studs and cutting them to where they have a flange that will attach to the wood on all sides, and the stud will have a set of screws going into this up here, or probably we most likely will use rivets up here. Sheet metal will really call for that, steel rivets, and that'll make this very firm. And then all we're going to do is take another stud and saddle it in here and shoot a few screws and box it, but we'll put foam inside of it before we do it. That'll be 1.5 inches of foam, and then 4 of these studs going across to frame this in. On top of that, that way you can just screw paneling in on top and use the sheet metal to make a nicer frame with this boxed in. All right, so on the outside, I went ahead and got this side done, and it's got, you can see where all that Dynaflex is coming out of it. And we'll also put it up there in that seam, but you see how that's oozed out of there. Now over here, we've done the same thing. We're cutting our radius in, and we're going to put a whole lot of Dynaflex back behind all that, and then taking this, we're going to form it back in underneath the edge of the metal. So this right now, I have been working it down. It is the metal lip that's coming up about 1.25 inches, and the way that I just did it was I just simply started the process by taking a board and putting it on there and just kind of bending the board, moving it down, bending, and slowly work that up to where I could get a seam angle here, and then I will just continue it, closing it in. Now, once that's done, I'll be able to still push it down and get this metal out over the top. Same thing with down here. So you can see that the finished product is a nice, solid, watertight fender well. A little dirty, but, and we'll do a cleaning job on it, and then we're going to spray this whole area with a bed liner, maybe a brush-on bed liner or a rubberizing compound of some kind to give it a little more durability. But there you go, guys. Not too hard to do. You can do this. You can build your own fenders, and I really recommend that Dynaflex, because man, I ain't never had no leaks using that stuff. It's even up behind this, and there's a double layer flashing up inside of there. The tires, they're not going to hurt this. So way tougher than the factory original. Okay, tires back on. Fender well completely built. We still got a little caulk work to do. We're going to let all the rest of it dry first, and that nice, full, brand new fender is in place. All right, guys, there you go. Do it yourself, man. Ain't that hard.